Rain pounded on the roof as I stood frozen on the porch, my suitcase heavy in my hand. My own family, Mom, Dad, Mom and my sister had just screamed at me, their voices sharp like glass. They called me a burden, a nobody, a mistake. They told me to leave and never come back, all because I dared to dream of a life that wasn't theirs. My heart felt like it was breaking in two. Would I find a way to prove them wrong, or would their words haunt me forever? Where are you watching this from? Tell me in the comments. Let's dive into this story together. I was 24 when my world fell apart. My name is Kendall Jenner, and I grew up in a small house in a sleepy town. Our house had a red door, a creaky porch, and a backyard with an old swing. Mom loved her shiny jewelry and fancy dresses. Dad was always talking about his important job at the bank. My sister Kim wanted to be famous, always posing for pictures and giggling with her friends. But me, I loved drawing pictures, writing stories and imagining a life where I could be free. I didn't want to be like them, and that made them mad. It wasn't always bad. When I was little, Mom would hug me when I showed her my drawings. Dad would read my stories and smile. Kim and I used to play on the swing, laughing until our stomachs hurt. But as I got older, things changed. Mom started sighing when I talked about my dreams. "Kendall, grow up," she'd say. Dad would shake his head. "You'll never make it on your own," he'd tell me. Kim was the worst. She'd call me weird in front of her friends, and they'd laugh like I was a joke. I felt like I was invisible in my own home. I tried to make them happy. I cleaned the kitchen, did my chores and kept my dreams quiet. But it was never enough. They wanted me to be someone else, someone who worked a boring job, wore fancy clothes and never asked questions. I couldn't do that. I wanted to move to a big city, draw pictures for books, and live a life that felt like mine. Every time I said it, they got angrier. The big fight came on a cold, rainy night. I was sitting at the dinner table, my hands shaky. I took a deep breath and told them my plan. "I want to move to the city," I said. "I want to make art and write stories." I thought they'd be proud, maybe even a little excited. Instead, their faces turned hard. Mom's eyes narrowed. "You're so selfish, Kendall," she shouted. "All you care about is yourself." Dad's voice boomed. "You're a burden. You live in our house, eat our food and do nothing but dream." Kim leaned back in her chair, smirking. "Nobody wants you here, Kendall. Just go." My chest felt like it was caving in. I tried to speak, but my throat was tight. "I'm not a burden," I whispered. "I just want to be me." But they didn't care. Mom pointed to the door, her face red. "Get out. Stay out of our lives." Dad crossed his arms, nodding. Kim just laughed. I looked at each of them, waiting for someone to say they didn't mean it. Nobody did, so I ran to my room, grabbed my suitcase and stuffed it with clothes, my sketchbook and a few books. Tears burned my eyes as I stepped into the rain. The cold water soaked my shoes as I walked to the bus stop. I sat on a hard bench, the rain dripping down my face. It mixed with my tears and I couldn't tell which was which. My heart hurt so much I thought it might stop. How could my own family hate me? I thought about all the times I tried to please them, staying quiet, hiding my drawings, pretending I was okay. It didn't matter. They saw me as a problem, not a daughter or a sister. But even as I cried, something small and fierce woke up inside me. It was like a tiny flame in the dark. "I'm not a burden," I said out loud, my voice shaky. "I'll show them. I'll build a life so big, they'll wish they never said those things." I didn't know how, but I knew I had to try. I got on a bus to a big city, my suitcase at my feet. The windows were foggy, and the world outside looked blurry. It was scary, but it felt like the start of something new. In the city, I found a tiny room to rent. It had peeling paint, a squeaky bed, and one small window. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I got a job at a coffee shop, pouring drinks for people who smiled and said thank you. For the first time, I felt like someone saw me. I saved every dollar I could, dreaming of a day when I'd do something big. At night, I sat on my bed and drew pictures or wrote stories. My sketchbook was full of bright colors and brave characters, people who didn't let anyone tell them who to be. It was hard, but I was free. 3 months went by. I was starting to feel strong again, like I could breathe without hurting. Then one night, my phone buzzed. I picked it up and saw a message from Kim. My stomach twisted as I read it. "Kendall, we need you. Our house is in trouble. Please help us." I stared at the screen, my heart racing. The same family that kicked me out now wanted my help. Why? What happened? I learned later their house was in foreclosure. That meant they might lose it because they couldn't pay their bills. I didn't know how it got so bad, but I knew it was serious. I remembered that house, the red door, the creaky porch, the swing in the back. I remembered the good times, like baking cookies with Mom, or reading books with Dad, but I also remembered their words, "You're a burden, stay out of our lives." Those words cut like a knife. I sat on my squeaky bed, holding my phone. Part of me wanted to ignore Kim's message, to let them feel the pain they gave me. They didn't care when I needed them. Why should I care now? But another part, the part that still loved them, felt a tug. Could I really let them lose everything? Could I walk away and not look back? I looked at my sketchbook on the table. The pages were full of my dreams, bright and bold. They reminded me who I was. I wasn't a burden. I was Kendall, and I was building something new. But the question wouldn't leave me. Would I help my family, or would I let them face what they deserved? Can you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, please? It will be a huge support to me. Let's continue. My phone glowed in the dark. Kim's message staring up at me. "Kendall, we need you. Our house is in trouble. Please help us." My heart pounded like a drum. Just 3 months ago, my family pushed me out, calling me a burden. Now they wanted me back. I sat on my creaky bed, my mind spinning. Would I go to them, or would I let them lose everything just like they let me go? That message from Kim shook me up. I hadn't heard from my family since the night they told me to leave. I could still hear Mom's voice, sharp and cold. "Get out. Stay out of our lives." I could see Dad's frown and Kim's smirk. Those memories hurt like a fresh cut. But now they needed me. Why? I didn't answer Kim's text that night. I couldn't. My heart was too heavy. The next morning, I went to my job at the coffee shop. The smell of coffee beans filled the air, and the chatter of customers felt warm. I poured drinks, smiled, and tried to act normal, but my mind was far away. Why was their house in trouble? Did they spend too much money? Did Dad lose his job? I remembered how Mom loved her fancy clothes, and how Kim always wanted new things. Maybe they weren't careful. Maybe they thought money would never run out. At lunch, I sat in the back with my sandwich and checked my phone. Another message from Kim. "Kendall, please call, it's bad." My stomach twisted. I wanted to know more, but I was scared. What if they just wanted to use me? I put my phone down and went back to work, but the questions followed me all day. That night, I sat at my small table with my sketchbook. I tried to draw, but my pencil wouldn't move. Instead, I kept thinking about home. I remembered the good days, running through the backyard with Kim, pushing each other on the swing. I remembered Mom teaching me to bake cookies, her hands soft as she showed me how to mix the dough. Dad used to tell me stories about his work, his eyes bright with pride. Those memories made my chest ache. They were my family, even if they hurt me. But then I thought about the bad times. Mom stopped smiling at my drawings. She'd say, "Kendall, those are silly, get a real job." Dad would laugh when I talked about moving away. "You're not strong enough," he'd say. Kim was meanest of all. She'd tell her friends I was weird, and they'd giggle behind my back. I tried so hard to make them happy, but they only saw my differences as problems. That's why they called me a burden and told me to go. I looked at Kim's messages again. Part of me wanted to call her, to hear what happened. Maybe they were sorry, maybe they'd changed. But another part of me, the part that was still angry, wanted to ignore them. They didn't care when I was crying in the rain, walking to the bus stop with nowhere to go. Why should I care now? The next day, I couldn't stand it anymore. I called Kim. My hands shook as the phone rang. When she answered, her voice was soft, not like the smirk I remembered. "Kendall, thank you for calling," she said. "We're in big trouble. The bank says we'll lose the house if we don't pay soon." I stayed quiet, waiting. "Dad lost his job," she went on. "Mom spent too much, and I wasn't careful either. We need money, Kendall. You're doing okay, right? Can you help?" I felt like I couldn't breathe. They lost the house because of their own mistakes, and now they thought I had money to fix it. I worked hard at the coffee shop, but I barely had enough for my rent and food. I saved a little, but it was for my dreams, my art, my stories, my future. "I don't have much," I said finally. "Why should I help? You told me to stay out of your lives. Kim was quiet for a long time, then she said, I'm sorry, Kendall, we were wrong. Please just come home, we need to talk. Her voice sounded sad, but I didn't know if I could trust her. Was she really sorry, or did they just want my help? I hung up without saying yes or no. My head was a mess. I walked to my window and looked out at the city lights. They sparkled like stars, full of promise. I'd come here to start over, to be free. I was building something new, something mine, but my family's words pulled me back. I could almost see our house, the red door, the creaky porch, the swing. I imagined it empty, taken by the bank. Could I let that happen? I thought about my savings, tucked away in a jar under my bed. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. Giving it to them would mean giving up my plans for a while. It would mean going back to a place where I felt small and unwanted. But if I didn't help, would I feel guilty forever? Would I always wonder if I could have saved them? I sat on my bed, my sketchbook in my lap. I opened it and saw my drawings, bright colors, brave characters, stories of people who fought for what they wanted. They gave me strength. I wasn't a burden. I was Kendall, and I was stronger than they thought. But the question stayed with me. Could I walk away from my family, or did I have to face them one more time? My hands shook as I held my bus ticket, staring at the words, one way. I was going back to my family's house, the place where they called me a burden and told me to leave. Kim's voice echoed in my head, begging for help to save their home. I didn't know if I could trust them, but I had to find out. It had been 3 days since I talked to Kim. Her words about the house being in trouble stuck with me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. My savings jar sat under my bed, heavy with coins and bills I'd worked hard for. It was for my dreams, art classes, maybe a little shop for my drawings. Giving it to my family would mean putting my plans on hold. But if I didn't help, would I regret it forever? I decided to go back, not to give them money right away, but to see if they meant their apology. I packed a small bag with clothes, my sketchbook, and a jar of savings. The bus ride was long, and the hum of the engine made my thoughts loud. I remembered the night I left, soaking wet, crying at the bus stop. My family's words, "You're a burden, stay out of our lives," felt like a weight on my chest. Could they really be sorry, or was this just a trick? When the bus stopped in my old town, my stomach felt tight. The air smelled like grass and rain, just like I remembered. I walked to our house, my shoes crunching on the gravel road. The red door looked faded, and the porch creaked louder than before. The swing in the backyard hung still, like it was waiting for something. I knocked, my heart racing. Kim opened the door. Her face looked tired, not like the confident sister I knew. "Kendall," she said, her voice soft. "You came." She stepped aside, and I walked in. The house smelled like old coffee and dust. Mom and Dad sat at the kitchen table, papers scattered in front of them. They looked older, like the last 3 months had been hard. "Kendall," Mom said, standing up. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Dad nodded but didn't smile. I stood by the door, my bag heavy on my shoulder. "Why am I here?" I asked, my voice steady even though I felt scared. Kim sat down, twisting her hands. "The bank is taking the house," she said. "We owe too much money. Dad lost his job, and we spent too much." Mom looked at the floor. "I bought things we didn't need," she admitted. Dad sighed. "I thought I'd find work fast, but I didn't." Kim bit her lip. "I got a credit card, and used it too much. We're all to blame." I listened, my heart mixed up. Part of me felt sorry for them. Losing the house was big, but another part was angry. They made bad choices, and now they wanted me to fix it. "You called me a burden," I said, my voice loud in the quiet room. "You told me to leave. Why should I help now?" Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We were wrong, Kendall," she said. "We were mad and said things we didn't mean." Dad nodded. "You're not a burden. We're sorry." Kim looked at me, her face serious. "I was meanest of all. I'm sorry for laughing at you, for making you feel small." Their words sounded nice, but I didn't know if I believed them. I remembered all the times they hurt me. Mom's sighs at my drawings, Dad's laughs at my dreams, Kim's giggles with her friends. Apologies were easy to say when they needed something. I held my bag tighter. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "We need money," Dad said, his voice low. "If we don't pay soon, the bank takes the house." Kim looked at me. You're doing okay in the city, right? You have a job. Can you help? I felt a spark of anger. They thought I was rich. I worked long hours at the coffee shop, scraping by. My savings were small, earned 1 cup of coffee at a time. I don't have much, I said, and what I have, I worked hard for. It's for my dreams. Mom's face fell. But this is our home, Kendall, she said. Don't you care? Her words stung. Of course I cared. I grew up here, but they didn't care when they pushed me out. Why was it my job to save them now? I looked around the kitchen. The walls had pictures of us when I was little, smiling, happy. Those days felt so far away. I wanted to believe they were sorry, but trust was hard. I need time to think, I said. Kim nodded. Stay tonight, she said. We can talk more tomorrow. I agreed, but I kept my bag close, like a shield. That night, I slept in my old room. The bed was the same, but it felt strange. My drawings were still on the walls, faded but bright. I opened my sketchbook and looked at my new pictures, strong characters, big dreams. They reminded me who I was. I wasn't a burden. I was Kendall, and I had a life to build. But as I lay in the dark, the house creaked around me. I thought about the red door, the swing, the kitchen table. Could I let it all go, or would I give up my savings and my dreams to save a family that broke my heart? If you are still watching the video, please do hit that like button and subscribe. I really need your support. Let's continue to the story. I woke up in my old room, the morning light sneaking through the cracked curtains. My sketchbook lay open on the bed, its bright drawings reminding me of my dreams. Downstairs, my family waited, hoping I'd give them my savings to save their house. But their apologies felt shaky, like a house built on sand. My savings jar was hidden in my bag, heavy with every dollar I'd earned at the coffee shop. I'd come back to see if my family meant their apologies, but my heart was still sore from their words 3 months ago. You're a burden, stay out of our lives. Now they needed me, but I needed answers. I walked downstairs, the smell of burnt toast filling the air. Mom was at the stove, her hands shaky as she flipped bread. Dad sat at the table, staring at a pile of bills. Kim was on her phone, her face tight. They looked up when I came in, their eyes hopeful but nervous. I sat down, keeping my bag close. I need to know the truth, I said. Why is the house in trouble, and why should I trust you? Dad sighed, rubbing his face. I lost my job because I made a mistake at work, he said. I wasn't honest about some numbers, and they fired me. My eyes widened. Dad always acted so proud, like he never did wrong. Now he was admitting a lie. Mom looked at me, her voice small. I thought we'd always have enough. Kim put her phone down. I messed up too, she said. I got a credit card and bought things to look cool online. I didn't think it would hurt us. I listened, my heart heavy. They'd all made bad choices, lying, spending, pretending, and now their house, the one with the swing and the red door, was slipping away. So why me? I asked. Why ask me for help after you pushed me out? Mom's eyes filled with tears. We were wrong, Kendall, she said. We were mad because you didn't fit our plans, but we need you now. Her words sounded soft, but something felt off. I looked at Kim. You laughed at me, I said. You called me weird in front of your friends. Kim's face turned red. I was stupid, she said. I was jealous. You were brave chasing your dreams. I wasn't. I blinked. Jealous? Kim, with her perfect hair and fancy friends, was jealous of me. It didn't make sense. Dad spoke up. We're sorry, Kendall, but the bank comes next week. If we don't pay, we lose everything. He pointed to the bills on the table. We need your help. I looked at the papers, red stamps, big numbers, words like foreclosure notice. It was real. They could lose the house in days. I stood up and walked to the window. The backyard swing swayed in the breeze, reminding me of better days. I thought about my savings, earned from long hours pouring coffee. It was for my art, my future. If I gave it to them, I'd have to start over. But if I didn't, I'd carry the weight of their loss. I turned back to them. How much do you need? I asked. Dad hesitated. $5,000, he said. My heart sank. That was almost everything I had. I'd saved for months, dreaming of art classes and a little shop for my drawings. Giving it up would mean giving up a piece of me. I don't know if I can, I said, my voice quiet. Mom started to cry. Please, Kendall, she said. This is our home. I felt trapped. I wanted to believe they were sorry, but their words felt like they were pulling me back into their world, a world where I was never enough. I remembered the night they kicked me out, the rain soaking my shoes as I cried at the bus stop. They didn't care then. Why was it different now? I need to think, I said, grabbing my bag. I walked outside to the backyard, sitting on the old swing. The wood was rough, but it felt familiar. I opened my sketchbook and looked at my drawings. Bright colors, strong characters, stories of people who fought for themselves. They gave me courage. I wasn't a burden. I was Kendall, and I'd built something new in the city. But as I swung gently, I heard footsteps. Kim came out, her arms crossed. Kendall, I know you're mad, she said, but we're family. Doesn't that mean something? Her voice was soft, but then she said something that made my blood run cold. If you don't help, we'll tell everyone you turned your back on us. You'll look selfish. I stared at her, my heart pounding. Was this their plan? To guilt me, to threaten me? The apologies I'd heard inside now felt like a trap. I stood up, holding my sketchbook tight. You haven't changed, I said. You're still trying to control me. Kim's eyes widened, but she didn't say anything. I walked past her, back to the house, my mind racing. Inside, Mom and Dad looked at me, waiting. I realized something big. Their apologies weren't about me. They were about what I could give them. I had a choice to make, and it wasn't just about money. It was about who I was, and who I wanted to be. I stood in the kitchen, my bag slung over my shoulder, facing my family. Mom's eyes were wet with tears, Dad's face was tight, and Kim's threat echoed in my ears. If you don't help, we'll tell everyone you're selfish. My savings jar was in my bag, every dollar earned from my hard work. They wanted it to save their house, but I wasn't sure they deserved it. The air felt heavy, like a storm was coming. I'd come back to see if my family's apologies were real, but Kim's words outside by the swing showed me the truth. They weren't sorry for hurting me, they were sorry they needed me. My heart ached, but I knew I had to make a choice. I looked at Mom, her hands twisting a napkin. Kendall, please, she said. This is our home. You're part of this family. Dad nodded. We made mistakes, but we're asking for your help. Kim stayed quiet, her eyes on the floor. I took a deep breath, my voice steady. You called me a burden, I said. You told me to leave. I built a new life, and now you want my money. Why should I trust you? Mom started to cry harder. We're sorry, she said. We didn't mean it. But her words felt empty. I remembered the rainy night they kicked me out, my shoes wet, my heart broken. I remembered Kim laughing at me, Dad saying I'd fail, Mom telling me to grow up. Their apologies now sounded like they were just for show. I set my bag on the table and pulled out my sketchbook. This is who I am, I said, opening it to a drawing of a girl with bright wings, flying over a city. I draw, I write stories, I work hard, I'm not a burden. I looked at them, waiting for them to say something kind. Dad frowned. That's nice, Kendall, but we need money, not pictures. Kim rolled her eyes. Come on, stop being dramatic. Mom just looked away. Their words stung, but they also made things clear. They didn't see me, they never had. I closed my sketchbook and picked up my bag. I can't give you my savings, I said. I worked for it. It's for my dreams, art classes, maybe a shop for my drawings. I need it for me. Mom's face crumpled. You're abandoning us, she cried. Dad stood up, his voice loud. After all we did for you, this is how you act. Kim crossed her arms. I knew you'd be selfish, she said. Their words hurt, but I didn't let them pull me back. You pushed me out, I said. You made bad choices, not me. I'm not your fix. I walked to the door, my heart pounding but strong. The red door creaked as I opened it. I looked back one last time. The kitchen table was covered in bills. The walls held old photos of us smiling. I loved this house, but I couldn't let it trap me. I hope you find a way, I said, but it's not my job. Then I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face. I walked to the bus stop, the same one where I'd cried 3 months ago. This time, I wasn't crying. I felt sad but free. My savings jar was still in my bag, safe for my future. I got on the bus back to the city, watching the town fade away. The swing, the porch, the red door, they were part of my past, not my now. Back in my tiny city room, I felt lighter. The peeling paint and squeaky bed were home. I went back to my coffee shop job, pouring drinks and smiling at customers. At night, I drew in my sketchbook, my pictures brighter than ever. I signed up for an art class, using a little of my savings. It felt like a step towards something big. A month later, I heard from a neighbor that my family lost a house. They moved to a small apartment, and Dad got a new job. Kim started working too, and Mom stopped buying fancy things. They were okay, but we didn't talk. It hurt, but I knew I'd made the right choice. I couldn't fix their mistakes, and I couldn't let them break me again. I looked at my sketchbook, now full of new drawings, cities, stars, people with strong hearts. Each one told my story. I wasn't a burden. I was Kendall, and I was building a life I loved. Maybe one day my family would see that. Maybe they wouldn't. Either way, I was free. Looking back, I learned something big. Family matters, but so do you. Sometimes, you have to choose yourself, even when it's hard. I hope my story helps you think about your choices. What would you have done? Did I make the right call? Let me know and tell me where you're watching this from. Thanks for coming on this journey with me.